A goon prisoner approaches this girl and tells her that she might possess powers outside, but within the prison, she holds power, and the girl has to obey her. However, she refuses to comply. In response, the other prisoners allied with the goon attack the girl. At first, she doesn't respond to them, but then the goon prisoner strikes her abdomen, stating that they have heard she is pregnant, and they want to see how strong her baby is. This angers her greatly, prompting her to unleash her powers with all her might. She uses a nearby metal table to strike back at the troublemaker and pin him into the metal grill bars. Meanwhile, guards intervene to stop the fight. They take the girl away and confine her alone in a closed bunker. Poor girl starts weeping, while blood is flowing from her nose. Her name is Lorna. Lorna was arrested by the police a few days ago when she attempted to rescue a mutant escapee named Clarice from the police. Lorna herself is a mutant with the ability to use metals according to her will. She can stop the bullets, move cars, and use any type of metal as a weapon. While fleeing the police after rescuing Clarice, Lorna's boyfriend Marcos was shot by one of the officers. This enraged her, prompting her to seek revenge on the police officer responsible for the injury of her boyfriend. While the other team members managed to escape, Lorna stayed behind for revenge and was captured by the police, who used a freezing shot to apprehend her. When she was brought to her prison cell, she attempted to use her powers on the metal doors. However, she received a kickback from the collar that authorities had placed around her neck. This kickback pushed her back onto the metal toilet, causing an injury to her head. Seeing this, all the other prisoners began laughing at her. She was new in prison and didn't know much, but she was still desperate to get out. One fellow prisoner informed her that the collar was installed to prevent her from using her powers. It was specially made for mutant prisoners by the authorities. She also mentioned that Lorna was now stuck there until she received backup. In response, Lorna mentioned that she had backup, but it wasn't just there at that time. When she was heading to take a shower, a prisoner spat on her to mock her. However, the attending guard instructed her to keep walking. Lorna also saw another mutant prisoner present in a cell there. In the present, while all the prisoners are in the mess hall, she goes and sits with that mutant. Lorna attempts to inquire about the collar, in hopes of finding a way to free herself. However, the other mutant is fearful and reluctant to talk with Lorna. She simply states that Lorna is not the only one who has attempted to break the collar. Additionally, she advises Lorna to keep her distance because Lorna can be a source of trouble for her. Afterwards, when all the prisoners are outside, a goon prisoner approaches Lorna and tells her that she might possess powers outside, but within the prison, she holds power, and Lorna has to obey her. However, Lorna refuses to comply. In response, the other prisoners allied with the goon attack Lorna. At first, Lorna doesn't respond to them, but then the goon prisoner strikes her abdomen, stating that they have heard she is pregnant, and they want to see how strong her baby is. This angers Lorna greatly, prompting her to unleash her powers with all her might. She uses a nearby metal table to strike back at the troublemaker and pin him into the metal grill bars. Meanwhile, guards intervene to stop the fight. They take Lorna away and confine her alone in a closed bunker. Poor Lorna weeps while blood is flowing from her nose. On the other side, the Strucker family, who has contacted Lorna's boyfriend Marcos to help them cross the border. With two mutants in the Strucker family, Andy and Lauren, they have been evading Sentinel services and seek to cross the border for their safety. However, Sentinel services somehow discovers their secret meeting point and arrives there. Two other mutants, Johnny and Clarice, arrive at the scene just in time to help them. Clarice manages to get everyone out of there by creating a portal with her powers, but Reed Strucker, the father, is shot by the police and arrested at the scene. Because of keeping the portal open for such a long distance, Clarice becomes seriously ill. Her systems begin to fail, and multiple portals start opening randomly all over the place. Meanwhile, the mother, Caitlin Strucker, goes to the hospital to get some medication for Clarice. After administering the medication, Clarice finally starts to improve, and the portals close. Caitlin feels guilty, believing she has destroyed the headquarters of the Underground, which is a secret organization of mutants. However, Johnny convinces her that she didn't do anything wrong, and that the place was already in poor condition. Arrested mutant Reed Strucker is interrogated by the police. He is being asked to assist the authorities in finding the mutants, but he is unwilling to cooperate. On the other side, we witness Lorna attempting her best to break out of jail. However, despite exerting all her strength, she can only manage to open the door of her bunker. Even this slight use of her powers leaves her very weak, with blood flowing from her nose due to that collar band. At the underground headquarters, Marcos, Johnny, and Sonia are discussing a plan to free Lorna from jail, but so far, nothing seems to be working. We also learn that Mr. Reed Strucker is actually a prosecutor who was recently assigned to prosecute Lorna. However, things took a turn when some bullies attacked his son, Andy. In fear for his safety, Andy revealed his mutant powers, destroying the school building where many people were present. Fortunately, his sister Lauren, who was also a mutant, saved Andy from the collapsing building. Upon discovering that his own children are mutants, Reed reached out to Marcos for help. He wanted his family to cross the border to Mexico, where regulations against mutants are less strict, but he ended up being caught by authorities in the process. In the present, we see Caitlin Strucker and her 2 children on the road, fleeing from the safe place of mutants in search of help from their Uncle Danny. First, they rob a bank to gather enough money to reach their uncle via taxi, but when they reach Uncle Danny's place for help, he refuses to assist them due to the fear of Sentinel services. Meanwhile, some locals arrive there with guns, as they are aware that the mutants responsible for the previous day's building destruction are there. Marcos and Johnny also arrive there to rescue the Strucker family from the dangerous situation. The mutants and Caitlin get into an SUV and attempt to escape, but they are followed by those local people with guns and 2 other vehicles. They also start shooting at them. Luckily, Clarice appears on the road and opens a portal for the SUV to a safe place, saving the whole group. After reaching the safe place, Caitlin apologizes to Marcos, acknowledging that she shouldn't have gone to get help from ordinary people. Back in the prison, Lorna is transferred to a new cell, where she finds Reed already present. Reed attempts to apologize to her for his past actions, explaining that he was just following the law and was unaware of the innocence of the mutants he prosecuted, until he discovered his own children were mutants. However, Lorna asks him to apologize to the mothers and children who were separated because of him. Then, both prisoners are being taken to another location under high-security surveillance. They are being transferred on a bus with an interior entirely made of plastic. Meanwhile, Andy and Lauren, along with their mother, are on top of a building, planning to rescue their father. They coordinate with other mutant friends to liberate Lorna and Reed from Sentinel services. When the bus arrives at the marked point, Andy and Lauren work together to burst the bus's tire, causing the entire convoy to stop midway. In the meantime, the main team of mutants initiates an attack on the Sentinel services officers. A mutant named Shatter, who has the ability to turn invisible, moves towards the bus first, but an officer spots him and shoots at him. Marcos attempts to use his powers but finds himself unable to, and the same goes for Johnny and Clarice. The plan is to open a portal inside the bus to extract Lorna and Reed from the bus, but someone appears to have disrupted their powers. Meanwhile, Johnny sees Pulse, an old ally who was presumed dead after being shot by the Sentinel services during a previous mutant attack. However, to Johnny's surprise, Pulse is still alive and working with Sentinel services against his own people. He has the ability to disrupt digital devices, and he can also stop other mutants from using their powers. Johnny tries to persuade him to reconsider his allegiance, but Pulse remains indifferent. Johnny also notices a strange tattoo on Pulse's forearm. After the unsuccessful attempt to convince Pulse, Johnny decides to fight him. Once Johnny makes Pulse unconscious, all the mutants' powers are restored. Inside the bus, Reed and Lorna team up to fight against the guards, but the guards overpower them and tie them up again by their neckbands since their hands are already bound. Lorna can feel her power back, but can't use it because there's no metal around in the bus. With Reed's encouragement, Lorna uses metal nails from Reed's leg. They were in his leg from an old sports injury of childhood. She extracts those nails from his leg and uses them to kill the officers and free themselves. After escaping the bus, Lorna fights the guards outside using their own metal guns and bullets against them. With Lorna's help, mutants manage to beat the Sentinel services easily and run away. Lorna and Reed meet up with their mutant friends and family. Clarice makes a portal to take the injured mutant Shatter and Sonia away from that place. At the same time, Caitlin drives a car to take the rest to safety. While they have successfully escaped from the grasp of the Sentinel services, they are still being tracked by a drone deployed by them. Lorna sees the drone hovering directly above their car using its rearview mirror. Marcos uses his light rays reflected in the mirror to burn down the drone, until it turns to ashes. During the journey, Marcos shares with Lorna how much he missed her in her absence, and also reveals that he has learned about their child growing inside her belly. Meanwhile, they notice that the Sentinel services have blocked their path ahead. Seeing this, Marcos suggests reversing, but Lorna insists on driving straight through. Upon reaching Officer Turner, Lorna uses her powers to disarm the officers and takes Agent Turner with them. They bring him to an abandoned location, where Lorna binds him by tying his neck with a metal beam. She demands answers about their fellow mutant, Pulse. She asks what they did to him that made him turn against them. Turner responds that he doesn't know about Pulse, but he believes that the people in Sentinel Services may have influenced him for a good cause, leading him away from a group that harms innocent people. Turner then reveals that his daughter was killed during a protest of mutants. He says that he doesn't know whether the energy responsible for his daughter's death came from a good mutant or a bad one. The scene becomes emotional, but Lorna remains determined to obtain the information she seeks. She calls Sonia, who has the ability to read minds. As Sonia begins delving into Turner's memories, the Sentinel Services arrive and launch an attack on the building. Lorna defends them by using metal rods to stop the attackers from entering the building, buying Sonia more time to gather information. However, the situation becomes hard when the Sentinel Services deploy tear gas, making it difficult for the mutants to remain in the building. Amidst Sonia's exploration of Turner's memories, Lorna instructs her to stop and quickly takes her out of that place. This sudden interruption disrupts Turner's memories and leaves him mentally disturbed. After arriving at the underground headquarters, Sonia gathers glimpses of Turner's memories and creates some images. One of the images depicts a tattoo identical to the one Johnny saw on Pulse's forearm during their fight. Another picture shows a building. Reed recognizes the building as a Sentinel Services detention center where many of the mutants he was prosecuting were sent. However, individuals sent there would mysteriously disappear, never to be seen again. Lorna suggests that the Sentinel Services are escalating their tactics by using manipulated mutants against them. Pulse was Johnny's best friend, and was trained by him. Lorna emphasizes that if Pulse can turn against them, anyone among the mutants could do the same. Therefore, they devise a plan to infiltrate the building and uncover more information about this dangerous program. They make thorough preparations and embark on their mission. Reed, Andy, and Marcos are on the mission. They travel toward the Sentinel Services detention center concealed within a large truck. While en route, a police officer stops them and instructs the driver to show him the truck from inside. As the driver opens the truck's back gate, Marcos utilizes his powers to create darkness by absorbing all the light there, rendering them invisible to the police officer. As a result, the police officer let them go on their way. After arriving at the building, they find that the security is far more strict than they expected at the front gate. Marcos communicates the situation to Lorna over the phone, who advises them to find an alternate entry point. They head to the parking lot, where Andy utilizes his powers to create a hole in the wall, providing them a way inside. Despite Andy's desire to accompany them, Reed insists he returns to the truck for his safety. Inside the building, Marcos and Reed proceed with their mission. Reed searches for mutant files and gathers them, while Marcos melts the locks and computer cases to retrieve the hard disks. After leaving the building with the desired files, they notice they are being chased. While in the truck, they observe 3 police vehicles following them. They promptly inform the headquarters about their situation. In response, Lorna, Lauren, and Wes rush to their aid. Wes, who possesses the ability to create illusions by manipulating images or scenes, joins the rescue mission. As the 3 police vehicles are following the truck, Sentinel Services also blocks the road ahead. Lorna calls Marcos and instructs him to continue driving straight, regardless of the obstacles. The driver complies, and as the truck approaches the officers, they open fire. However, Lorna uses her powers to stop the bullets in the air. She then directs Lauren to create a slide for the truck, enabling it to fly over the hurdles and continue on its path. Lauren successfully makes that slide with her powers, allowing the truck to bypass the blockade. Now, it's Wes's turn to showcase his abilities. He creates an illusion of the truck splitting into 2, with one seemingly going to the right and the other to the left. The Sentinel Services agents are deceived into pursuing the illusions, splitting into 2 groups, each going in different directions. Meanwhile, the actual truck continues straight ahead with an illusion trailing behind, creating the illusion that the road is empty. Thanks to their coordinated efforts, Reed, Marcos, and Andy, along with the secret information, are saved from the danger posed by the Sentinel Services. We then witness Agent Turner at the Sentinel Services building, urging his subordinates to intensify their efforts in locating the mutants. He directs them to decode every coding language used via cell phones within a 50-mile radius by monitoring every phone call. Turner appears visibly desperate in his search for the mutants. Meanwhile, Dr. Campbell arrives there. He uses mutants for his weird experiments in his lab. Here, he expresses his support for Turner's ambitions to catch the mutants. In exchange, he requests Turner's assistance capturing the Strucker kids for experimentation in his lab. In the night, Marcos receives a call from his ex-girlfriend, Carmen, who asks for his assistance with her own special mission. At first, Marcos refuses to do any work for her, but when Carmen threatens him to expose their location to the Sentinel services, Marcos agrees to come to her in the morning. Carmen had previously aided Marcos in locating the convoy route transporting Lorna and Reed. With her help, Marcos successfully rescued Lorna from the authorities. So now, she is pressuring him to work for her in return for her assistance. In the morning, Marcos takes his lucky charm with him and informs Lorna that he is going to get food and other necessities for the refugees. Then, he goes to the mansion of his old girlfriend, Carmen. In the evening, when Marcos hadn't returned, Lorna contacted the food supplier to inquire about him. However, the supplier informs her that no one had come for the food supplies that day. Concerned that Marcos might be in trouble, Lorna discusses the situation with Sonia, and they decide to visit Carmen's place. Meanwhile, Carmen offers Marcos a deal to work with her, promising to provide money for the mutant refugees in return. However, Marcos is not willing to accept her offer. Carmen then convinces Marcos to join her in an attack on a shipment of drugs with the intention of destroying it. Marcos refuses to participate in any violence, so Carmen introduces another mutant to handle the guards, while he just has to set fire to the shipment using his powers. Actually, Carmen is involved in the illegal drug trade, and her hands are stained with the blood of many people. This was the reason for Marcos's decision to leave her in the past, and that's why he still doesn't want to work with her. Lorna and Sonia arrive at Carmen's mansion and engage in a confrontation with the guards. Sonia utilizes her dreamer abilities to extract information from one of the guards' memories regarding Carmen and Marcos's whereabouts. Upon reaching their location, Lorna sees Marcos working for Carmen again. She gets very angry by seeing this and feels betrayed by his actions. Lorna decides to depart from the scene with Sonia, leaving Marcos with Carmen. Meanwhile, Carmen is happy at completing the job with Marcos's help and rewards him with a brief kiss. Back at the underground headquarters, when Marcos returns with some food supplies and fabricates a lie about being delayed, Lorna shows him her anger and presses him to tell the truth. Reluctantly, Marcos admits that he had to work for Carmen because she aided him when Lorna was imprisoned, but he couldn't bring himself to disclose this to Lorna earlier. Angered by his deception, Lorna removes his charm from his neck and walks away. Then we see Reed sorting through all the data they have stolen from Sentinel Services Detention Center. Much of the data is heavily encrypted, indicating its high level of confidentiality, and they have yet to decrypt it. Among the data they have managed to access, Reed comes across a file detailing a mutant whose facial sketch bears a striking resemblance to Wes. On the other side, Dr. Campbell visits Agent Turner and discusses their strategy to fight with mutants. He informs Agent Turner that they must deploy their special assets against the mutants, revealing that these assets are other mutants who have been altered through experimentation. Dr. Campbell explains that they have successfully integrated these altered mutants into their services, as they only act upon receiving a signal. Without the signal, they remain dormant, but once activated, they execute their tasks with precision. At the underground headquarters, the computer expert Sage informs Johnny and Reed that the only information retrieved from the drive stolen from Sentinel Services shows the list of the individuals enrolled in a program named The Hound. Also, Pulse is the first mutant on that list. Additionally, she reveals that the program is operated by a private military contractor affiliated with Trask Industries, rather than being officially run by the government. Reed intervenes, mentioning that Trask Industries ceased operations in 2006, a fact he knows because his father had been employed there for 35 years. After that day, while extracting mutants to a safe location, they capture a mutant asset from Dr. Campbell's Hound program. This mutant is one of several homeless mutants covertly placed by Dr. Campbell there. Another mutant, a telepath in that group, alerts Johnny about the anomaly in the mutant's mental activity. This mutant asset bears the same tattoo on her forearm as Pulse. She exhibits extraordinary speed and seemingly enhanced powers by some form of medication that heightens her abilities to a remarkable degree. Then, Reed and Johnny visit the residence of Reed's father, Otto Strucker, seeking information about Trask Industries because Otto has past connections with Trask Industries. Given the decades-long distance between Reed and his father, tensions run high. Their relationship has not been good since Reed's childhood, and they have not talked to each other for many years. Initially, Otto remains stubborn that the information regarding Trask Industries is highly classified, and he cannot disclose anything. However, when Reed says that his children are mutants and are currently hiding from the Sentinel services, Otto appears shocked and persuaded. He leads Reed to his room and shares old family photos and some newspaper clippings with him. Otto reveals that he himself is a mutant who spent his entire career at Trask Industries researching how to suppress the X gene in Reed. Fearing that his family might turn into monsters, he asks about Andy and Lauren's powers. When Reed tells him about the specificity of their powers, Otto mentions his own father and his sister, who were mutants with abilities similar to Andy and Lauren. However, he explains that when they combined their powers, particularly by joining hands, they became an immense threat. Their combined strength was so great they could destroy an entire building within seconds. He adds that they were also at the top of the most wanted list of terrorists back then, because they led a mutant terrorist group called the Hellfire Club. Otto then reveals to Reed that during his childhood, when he was seriously ill and near death, it wasn't leukemia, but a serum injected into him to suppress the X gene. Although it worked for him, the mutation was passed down to his children, Andy and Lauren. Otto cautions Reed, emphasizing the importance of protecting the world from the combined power of Andy and Lauren. Meanwhile, Sentinel Services arrives there with Dr. Campbell. Otto asks Reed and Johnny to hide there, and he himself goes down to counter the officers. Dr. Campbell attempts to interrogate Otto Strucker, but he refuses to provide the answers they seek. Dr. Campbell claims to have reviewed Otto's research on suppressing the X gene, and also praises his work. He then reveals that he actually used Otto's research to enhance the X gene instead. Sentinel Services wants to search Otto's house, but Otto refuses to allow them to do so. In response, they shoot Otto in the chest, but Otto demonstrates his mutant abilities and detonates himself, causing serious injuries to Dr. Campbell's face. The explosion also results in the death of Pulse, leaving Johnny deeply affected. Back at the underground, the mutant asset Chloe begins displaying withdrawal symptoms from the medication she was on. Catalin attempts to communicate with her, but the mutant is unable to speak. Esme, the telepathic girl, is summoned to delve into her thoughts. As Esme explores her mind, she discovers intense pain and glimpses of Trask Industries, where Dr. Campbell is with other mutant assets from the Hound program. However, the security at the building is extremely tight. Suddenly, Chloe succumbs to her pain and passes away on the spot. Then, all the mutants plan to infiltrate Trask Industries to save other mutants from this tyranny, but they require more information about the security measures in place. Thus, they decide to gather additional details about the building's security protocols first. Lorna and Sophia head to a bar, where one of the security guards of the Trask building is known to frequent. They extract the relevant information from him, but when he starts boasting about how they control mutants like animals, Lorna knocks him unconscious with a blow to the head. Sonia then delves deeper into his mind, using her mutant abilities to extract more intel. Back at the headquarters, Esme appears desperate to launch an attack on the facility where she says her family is trapped. She is eager to rescue them quickly, fueling her urgency to take action against the building. Meanwhile, Reed returns to the underground headquarters and shares everything with Catalin about what happened with his father. They decide to disclose everything about their powers to their children, determined not to repeat Otto Strucker's mistake of concealing information. They inform Andy and Lauren that according to Otto Strucker, they can become incredibly powerful by using their powers while holding each other's hands. To test this theory, they conduct an experiment in the locker room. When Andy and Lauren join hands, they experience a sense of unity and a surge of power, causing energy intensity to escalate within the locker room. However, Reed intervenes and separates their hands in time. Upon returning, Andy and Lauren reveal they are on the verge of destroying the entire building. They explain that they couldn't perceive anyone else in the room, and the sensation of immense power was overwhelming. This confirms that they possess the power of their grandparents, capable of causing widespread destruction around them. Now, all the mutants gather and plan to attack Trask Industries. They decide to target the power substation first, which is the source of Trask Industries' all the power. Once they destroy it, they will have a 3-minute window during which all automatic cameras and machine guns will be offline, allowing them to enter the facility. The Strucker kids are chosen to destroy the power station, while Lorna, Marcos, and Esme will infiltrate Trask Industries. Meanwhile, Agent Turner grows suspicious that mutants may attack the facility at any moment. He increases security measures and orders his subordinates to double-check security protocols. As the mutants gather outside Trask Industries, preparing to infiltrate, Esme accidentally drops a detonator box, but Lorna quickly saves it using her powers. Lorna tells Esme that this mission is not an adventure, especially for newcomers. Meanwhile, Esme reads Lorna's mind and learns about her past, including being captured by the police during a rescue mission for a mutant. Understanding Lorna's emotional point, Esme reveals that the pain of having her family trapped inside is a driving force for her presence, but it becomes evident that Esme has some different intentions from the others. Despite this, Lorna seems impressed by Esme's response. At the power station, Andy, Lauren, and Sonia enter through a portal created by Clarice. They are being guided by Reed and Caitlin, who are stationed in a van outside, monitoring through security cameras. Inside, they encounter a security guard whom Sonia manipulates into disposing of his badge and gun, before leaving without alerting anyone. However, Sentinel Services becomes aware of the mutants' plan, and Agent Turner orders security checks, confirming his suspicions of an attack on the substation. They converge on the substation, tightening their grip on the mutants inside. Caitlin warns the team to retreat, but Clarice struggles to open a portal due to the complex layout of the building. A Sentinel Services robot attacks Clarice and apprehends her there. It prompts the others to flee, leaving her behind. In the chaos, Sonia is also captured while protecting the Strucker kids. Andy and Lauren are now left alone. They even can't connect to their parents, as communication is broken down by the Sentinel Services. They end up running in the basement, and after that, they can't find any way out. So, they attempt to use their powers to escape. They join their hands and start the process of that extreme energy flowing through their body. But Andy abruptly breaks contact, realizing that their powers could end innocent lives trapped in the building. Meanwhile, Sentinel Services arrives there and captures both of them. On the other hand, the mutants ready to attack Trask Industries stop their mission upon learning that their teammates have been captured by Sentinel Services. Esme is unhappy with halting the mission and desperately wants to continue the operation under any circumstances. However, they return to the underground headquarters without listening to her. Now, the Strucker kids are at Trask Industries. They are brought before Dr. Campbell, who said that he has been waiting for this moment. He outfits them in special suits to monitor their mutant energy levels, before sending them to a bunker constructed of an indestructible alloy. The bunker is equipped with various types of biosensors. The doctor wants to see the combined power that Andy and Lauren have inherited from their great-grandparents. He asks them to demonstrate this power, but the Strucker kids refuse to obey him. In response, the doctor brings Sonia and Clarice to the scene. Again, he demands to display their power, but Sonia urges the kids not to comply. At this, the doctor gets angry and shoots Sonia in the chest. She dies before their eyes on the spot. Now, the doctor threatens to kill Clarice too, unless the kids demonstrate their power. Faced with no choice, they reluctantly agree and join their hands. They unleash their maximum power in the bunker until all the biometers reach their limits. Their computers are destroyed, and the indestructible container is now out of shape due to their power. The doctor then activates their neck collars to prevent further use of their powers. Despite this, the doctor is greatly impressed by the kids' abilities. His subordinate informs him that they have successfully extracted the amino acid, allowing the Strucker kids to combine their powers. The doctor instructs him to prepare a report to leverage this discovery for something significant. Then, we witness Reed convincing Turner to investigate Trask Industries for their illegal experiments on mutants. Upon arriving there for investigation, Turner discovers Sonia's death in the Trask Industries. Consequently, he decides to take all the mutants back to the prison. However, as they are about to exit the Trask Industries gate, other mutants from the underground appear. But Esme betrays the underground and launches an attack on the convoy single-handedly. Utilizing her powers, she deactivates the collars of all the mutants and manipulates the officers into firing on each other, eliminating them one by one. It is revealed that Esme has two identical twin sisters in the convoy. Her actions were aimed at liberating them from Trask Industries. Now that all the mutants are free and have reached the underground headquarters, the true identity of Esme and her sisters, the Frost sisters, becomes clear to everyone. They are revealed to be wealthy and influential individuals, with one of them even being involved in a senator's campaign. Meanwhile, Frost sisters return to the underground headquarters and seek the assistance of other mutants to dismantle the Hound program entirely. However, this time, the people at the headquarters are divided in their opinions. Some wish to join the Frost sisters and tackle the issue in their style, while others prefer to pursue their own methods. Frost sisters give them time to decide and leave the headquarters. Amidst the chaos, the Strucker family decides to leave the underground headquarters for Mexico. However, while they are at Fairburn, Sentinel Services launches an attack on the location. This time, they deploy a machine capable of combining the powers of their mutant assets, crafted using Strucker's amino acid. As a result, the attack is particularly brutal, and Andy sustains injuries from the attack. The Struckers contact Johnny and other mutants for assistance, and after some time, they arrive to extract the Strucker family from the dangerous situation. However, with officers scattered in the woods, there is no clear path to safety. It is then that the Foster sisters come to their aid, rescuing them from Sentinel Services by influencing the mental condition of the guards present there. Despite their reservations about the Foster sisters, the Strucker family and the mutants have no choice but to go with them for their own safety. Now, the Strucker family is back at the underground headquarters, where mutants make a deal to collaborate with the Frost sisters to dismantle the Hound program. Lorna appears deeply impressed by the Frost sisters during the negotiation. The scene shifts to an event where Dr. Campbell persuades a senator, who is already anti-mutant, to propose legislation, utilizing their new invention against mutants. He plans to employ the Hounds, augmented with compound powers, to attack mutants and intends to use Otto Strucker's research to suppress the X gene in mutants. The senator delivers a fiery speech against mutants in that event, mentioning to tackle the mutants by force this time. He receives a big applause from the audience, as they all are united by their hatred of mutants. Lorna and her allies, accompanied by the Frost sisters, also attend the event to apprehend Dr. Campbell. Clarice, Johnny, and Marcos reach inside the building through a portal. They engage with Dr. Campbell's guards and eliminate them. However, Dr. Campbell hides behind children to shield himself, and then flees in an elevator, pointing a gun at a child. Subsequently, more guards arrive and open fire. Johnny rushes towards Clarice to protect her by providing cover for her. When they exit the building without Dr. Campbell, the Frost sisters express their anger at them for failing the mission. They hastily get in their car and start driving, but Sentinel Services begins following them. While being pursued by two cars, Lorna emerges from their vehicle and effortlessly breaks a massive pole. She then puts the pole onto the road to block the officer's path, showcasing her immense power. Meanwhile, Agent Turner utilizes mutants with combined abilities to locate the underground headquarters. He launches an attack on the headquarters with a team, but the mutants inside, under the leadership of the Strucker family, are well prepared. They have already evacuated the children in a van with a mutant capable of going invisible, and blocked entry points with large cement blocks. One team under Caitlin's command attempts to breach the back wall of the locker room. They utilize the power of Shatter to weaken the wall, and then a muscular mutant delivers a powerful blow to break through the wall. They work together to clear the stones, slowly creating an escape route. Simultaneously, another team engages the soldiers at the front door, buying time for the evacuation. Then, Agent Turner uses the combined power of two mutants to dismantle the resistance in their entry into the building. But by that time, all the mutants inside the building manage to escape through the back route. Sensing the urgency, the Strucker kids persuade their parents to leave them on their own. They intend to destroy the entire building with their combined power to ensure there's no evidence left behind for Sentinel Services to investigate. Reed and Caitlin agree to their plan and leave the building without them. Meanwhile, the mutant assets enter the building and begin tearing it apart. However, the Strucker kids have already joined hands and initiated the display of their powers. A tremendous amount of energy comes out of the building. Upon witnessing this, Turner orders his soldiers to quickly retreat. The entire structure is destroyed within moments, as the Strucker kids unleash their full potential. On the other side, Dr. Campbell persuades the senator to immediately head to Washington, D.C., and push forward with the legislation, citing the recent attack by mutants at the event. Meanwhile, the Frost sisters succeed in convincing Lorna to eliminate the entire group en route to D.C., including the senator. Aware that her fellow team members would not agree to this plan, Lorna accompanies the Frost sisters alone to the airport. When Marcos, Johnny, and Clarice arrive to intervene, Lorna blocks them by putting a fence in their way. Her powers have been significantly amplified by her baby in her womb, and also her behavior has changed much. The Frost sisters have already left the scene. Marcos continues to reason with Lorna, warning her of the consequences, and how it will make things harder for mutants. However, Lorna remains resolute, determined that mutants will no longer hide. She says that we will fight for our rights from now on. As the airplane carrying the senator, Dr. Campbell, and other people takes off, Lorna tears it apart with her powers, resulting in their immediate death. In the ending scene, all the mutants gather in one place to discuss their future. Suddenly, Lorna arrives with the Frost sisters, announcing her intention to revive the Hellfire Club, and inviting those who wish to join her. She proposes to build a new world, and asserts that they must use force this time. Claiming that the mutant underground is dying, she urges them to fight for themselves. Some mutants are influenced by her stance and switch sides. Even Andy, despite his family's objections, leaves them to join Lorna. Despite his father's attempts to stop him, he refuses to listen and behaves badly. Lauren also tries to intervene, but ultimately fails to dissuade him. Lorna takes him with her, along with other mutants, and leaves the place.